time to get started. So welcome everybody back to CMX Connect Madrid. If you're here for the first time, where have you been all this time? If you're coming back after, welcome back. We are the Madrid chapter of CMX Connect. I'm based here in Madrid. My name's Valentina, and I have my own communities here. Many of you may know them. That Eat Out Madrid, Eat in Madrid. I'm a big foodie, love food. When I've eaten something, people say to me, like, how can you still be hungry? I'm always thinking about food. And I'm also part of the CMX team, Disciple team. And I've recently just joined the Atlassian team for the Community Leader Program. So I've got my fingers in a lot of different pies. I like to keep. What about you, Seppi?
Oh my gosh, busy woman over there. So I am Seppi, rhymes with Peppy, co-host here at CMX Connect Madrid. Although I now live in Malaga, or I've been in Malaga since November. So that's where I am right now. I am the founder of She Hit Refresh, community for women aged 30 and up who want to change their lives in a big way through travel. So moving abroad or traveling the world long term. Me from my previous group, Madrid Blogger Network, which we had in Madrid for content creators. And what else do I do? Oh, and I work at Power to Fly, if you're familiar with them as well. So I got my hands in lots of things as well.
Yeah, we like to keep ourselves busy, and over the last year, it's really helped to get through all the different situations we've been, exposed to. So let's talk a little bit about CMX Connect very briefly, because I know there's a few people here that are joining us for the first time. So CMX Connect is a local program powered by Bevy. This is live events, people. This platform that you're using right now is the Bevy virtual platform. And the aim of these events is to advocate for the community industry, to meet a friend, and also just to learn more about what's happening in the community industry and, advance, because a lot of us are doing this as our career and we want to move up on the career ladder. There's over 60 different chapters around the world. We are the only chapter here in Spain, but there's so many others on every. Check out events.cmxhub.com for all the events. And if there isn't a chapter in your city and you would like to start one, you can apply at the bottom of the page and be host just like me and Seppi. But Seppi, what have we got going on today? Oh, you're muted.
Year of and still that mute button gets me. So welcome again, everyone, for anyone who tuned in late. Super excited for today. So for today, we have a special guest with us who's going to be talking about burnout and mental health, taking care of you before your community. So we have a fireside chat with Jenny. Jenny, I'm going to have to ask you when you come on how to pronounce your last name. I thought I knew. Is it Lachs or Lachs? But she is the founder of Digital Nomad Girls. If you're familiar with the community, let us know in the comments. It's a community for location-independent women around the world. I think she has almost 40,000 communities. So it's a huge community. So we'll have a lovely fireside chat with her, and then there'll be time for Q&A after our chat. So please stick around for that. You can ask your questions, if you do have questions, in the Q&A box at the up there, the top of the chat box, you'll see Q&A, and you can go in there and ask your questions, and then I will refer to that box once we go into Q&A. So that's what we got.
I'm muted. Well, we're just going to get started. I know there's a few new people that just joined us, so welcome. Let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat and your favorite drink of choice. But we're going to get started. So, Seppi, would you like to welcome up Jenny, and let's get this fireside chat started?
Yeah, let's get it started on. All All right, like I said, we have the founder here of Digital Nomad Girls. Jenny is tuning in from the UK here. Hello, Jenny. Welcome to CMX Connect Madrid.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you, can see you. You look fabulous. How's it going there?
Good. That's my first time using this platform, so I'm excited to test it out and obviously also to talk to you. But yeah, I'm like, oh, how does it work?
We got you on. You're doing great so far. So first of all, can you pronounce your last name for me? Because I thought I knew it. A little shy.
You actually did really well. You did really well. Most people don't. It's Lachs. It's just like LAX, but yeah.
Got it. Jenny Lachs. Well, we are so excited to have you here to talk burnout and mental health. I know you have been in the community industry for quite a few years here. You have grown an incredible, successful community. And I know you've had your own experiences with burnout. And I know a lot of people in your community have also dealt with that. So I just thought you'd be the perfect person to share your own insights and experience with us. So first, thank you so much for your time and being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's exciting to talk about these topics because I think it's not something a lot of people do talk about in any context, and specifically in this context. So it's really cool that you're having this conversation.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. I guess let's start from the top. For those who don't know, much about you or Digital Nomad Girls, can you tell us about yourself, your community, and how it's grown?
Yeah, hang on. Let me just quickly. I forgot to put my ring lights on. Let's see if they help because it's getting dark in the UK already. So I'm like trying to be professional. I don't think that helped at all. So we're going to stop that. Yeah. So okay. From the top. Yeah, my community is called Digital Nomad Girls. It started out as a Facebook group and it still is a Facebook group now. You were quite generous. We have around 32 or 33,000 at the moment, so not quite at 40,000, which that's just a number anyway, but yeah. And I started it nearly 6 years ago. So in August, it will be our 6th birthday, which is crazy. And since then, I've started another kind of spin-off community of that, which is my paid membership, which is another community, but very different to the Facebook group, much, much, much smaller. And that has turned into my business as well. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that, transitioning to a business a little bit, although that's not the focus tonight. I'm sure a lot of people's ears perked up because a lot of people are interested in transitioning. But I'd love to hear about kind of the how and the why behind Digital Nomad Girls. Why did this community, or how did this community even get started?
Yeah, so many reasons. And at the time, what was it, 2015? I had just started working online myself. So in my old life, as I like to call it, I used to be a chemist. I worked, I studied got a PhD as well a couple of years before I started working online. But I had left all of that behind, went backpacking the traditional way, and then did the working holiday visa and all of that. But after a few years, I was like, I kind of like this traveling lifestyle. How can I make this sustainable long term? Because I was too old to get another working holiday visa and just keep going that way. And then I found out about digital nomads and this kind of lifestyle. And very early on, like I've always liked Facebook groups. Like I used them a lot when I was traveling. There were a lot of solo female travel groups, local and global, that I'd been in, and I've always found them so helpful, to ask questions, but also to meet people. I would often just go into one of the groups and say, hey, is anyone there? Can I make a friend? Can we meet for coffee, before I even arrived in a location? So when I started getting interested in this whole digital nomad thing, I joined some Facebook groups, and there weren't any for women specifically at the time. I don't even know if I noticed that right away, but I joined kind of the big groups. And sadly, very early on, I realized that the vibe in a lot of them was quite macho and quite harsh, competitive, quite sexist even, and I had a specifically bad experience, actually not on Facebook, but in a paid community. I had bought a course, which wasn't a great course, but anyway, there was a community that went with it, like a support community. And I remember asking a question relatively early on just about the content, and the first response I got was from a guy telling me I shouldn't be hysterical. And, I was literally asking a question. And it's funny because I never used to tell this part of the story. I used to be like, oh, I wanted to make friends, and that's all true. But I think these few very early on negative experiences in mixed spaces kind of spurned me on, like that gave me that motivation to actually go ahead and start my own community. And I do also think that was kind of a little bit inspired probably from the 10 years of working in science, which is a very male dominated field, and just realizing that I need the support and the community of women, you know, surrounding me and learning from each other and supporting each other. And I was a complete beginner at the time, so I really started this as a tool for myself. I'm like, oh, I need to ask these questions. Where do I ask them? Well, better build this thing so I can get people together to ask myself. So it was really, I think for a lot of people, right, we build the communities that we need.
Comes from our own experience, maybe, and our own curiosities. What a fascinating journey. I'm just always just fascinated with your journey from like chemist to community builder to digital nomad. So that's really impressive. You did say that your community or Digital Nomad Girls, there's a component of it that is now your business. I'm sure our audience, like I'm curious to know, how long did you run your community before it became a business, and what is the business?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I like talking about this because I think there's so much misinformation out there on, you know, oh, build your community and get rich overnight. And it didn't work like that for me. I'm sure I could have done things better. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. And when I started my Facebook group, I wasn't even aware that something like that could ever be a business. Like I had no business experience. I was a scientist. I was like, I literally didn't know anything about this. And it really took me years to even realize that that's what that is. My business is a community business. So even being here, I'm like, oh, it's very interesting. But yeah, I started about 6 years ago, like I said. And the first time I made money from or monetized my group, I hate that word, but the first time I did actually get paid money by some of my members, that's what it ultimately is, right, was about a year in. So it was just under a year in actually, and it was a retreat. So I didn't go the path of building a digital product and selling that to my community, which is, I think, what most people would recommend, right? To start with, like, oh, create an ebook and then a course and then a mastermind and then maybe a retreat. I did it all the other way around, just because I loved meeting people. We were running local meetups. I was meeting people at those myself because it's fun. And then we were sharing photos of those meetups, and other people went, hang on, what is this? Where is this happening? Why can't I come to this? Jenny, go ahead and organize a retreat for us. Why don't you do that? And I'm like, I literally, again, I was a scientist. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought, well, that sounds fun. Surely I can do that. And I was lucky and I did it. And people came and they paid me money. Massively undercharged for that first retreat, and also for the consecutive ones, but it doesn't matter because it led me here, so I don't really care about that. And yeah, that's how I did it. So after that first retreat, I remember one of the last days sitting there looking at the girls. There were 14 women came from 10 different countries for that first retreat, and we went to Spain to a co-living space called Sun & Co, where years later I also met you. So I remember sitting there and thinking, oh wow, oh, hang on, that's a thing. I could actually do that. Because at the time I was making my money as a digital nomad, like not as a digital nomad, but I was making my money as a freelancer. And that's how I was able to be a digital nomad. So it wasn't from my business right from the start.
So fascinating. For those that are watching out there, I'm curious to know if you guys you have your own community, if you're trying to monetize your community or make money or community, or if you are working for an organization or a company. What kind of community builder are you? Let us know in the comments there. So I'm asking all these questions because I want people to know kind of your journey, what you do, like how you provide value for your community, because I think all of that takes time. It takes energy. It takes a lot out of us as community builders, especially communities that are very near and dear to us, especially when they're our own communities. We pour ourselves into it. And so, you know, we deeply care for these communities. And, you know, you have a business that you added to it. So that's another layer. So I want to just ask you, how did it affect you? How were you affected energetically with everything?
I think it's really important to talk about this part. I can't really talk about my community and leave the business aspect or the burnout aspect away. Everything's connected, like you said, especially when it's your own community, these things get complicated, and especially the energy, right? It's focus. Most of us love our communities. We are there because we love these people. We love engaging. We love meeting them and connecting them with each other. It's a very rewarding and fun and lovely job. it's great work, but it also does take a lot of energy. It's not like, oh, it's 5 o'clock in the evening, I will close my laptop and now that is all, waiting for me until Monday morning. It doesn't work like that. I feel like it's very difficult to put boundaries in place. And really, honestly, I'm only learning that this year. So it's taking me a good 5 years, 6 years to learn properly about boundaries. And it's not that I've not learned about that before, but I feel like I had applied some boundaries to certain aspects of my community, but not to the rest. And hang on, maybe that doesn't make sense. I'm going to get a little bit more specific. So as the community grew in the first year, I can't remember the numbers exactly. I'm very bad at keeping track, but we reached around 4,000 or 5,000 within a year. And from then on, it grew kind of quickly for a while. And you do notice the dynamic changing a lot. You notice that very early on, even from a few hundred to a few thousand, and then from a few thousand to a few tens of thousand. It is a huge shift. And I think it's like an emotional journey as well, because it's just simply not the same anymore and you can't really go back. So often I've thought to myself, oh my God, I wish it was still really small. Like if we just had 5,000 again, it was kind of nice. So it does change and it does shift and evolve, but that's also the thing about communities. It's a business that is about people, and therefore it will always change and it will always evolve, and you can't really hold on too tightly onto what it was, because a member who you really like might leave. Oh, they got pregnant and bought a house and they're not digital nomads anymore and they're not really active anymore. So it's really sad, but it always changes. You meet new people and so on. So I think we have to be quite flexible. We have to be quite adaptable and okay to let go of certain things and just enjoy it as it is now. Did that answer your question?
Also, like, because you're giving so much, not only to your community, but then you've built your inner circle, which is your membership side, which I know takes a lot of energy because you're creating content. I mean, as community builders, we create content, we moderate, we're doing the social media, we're doing the business strategy, we're interacting with people, we're setting things that are layered on top of us to build successful communities. I'd love to tap into how, with all of that weight on your shoulders, and I guess leading into your own experience with burnout, how that affected you. Being on that hamster, also it's a hamster wheel. Being a community manager, you're kind of on this wheel, like you said, that never ends. You don't just close your laptop on Friday afternoon and take it up on Monday. Yeah. It really is, a community is living and breathing all day long, just like we are.
I think it's a really good question, because honestly, in the beginning, I really struggled with, I went from having one community that was like my absolute passion project, my Facebook group, loved it so much. And then I can't remember exactly, I think about 2.5 years in or so, that's when I launched my Inner Circle. That is my membership site. And suddenly I was running 2 communities, and just the shift from energy wise to balance that, but also to know, like you said, we create content, we moderate. Where should your energy go? Where should which content go? You have all of these ideas, but suddenly you have people who are paying you. So the relationship changes. In the past, it was, well, I'm doing all of this for free. I'm doing all of this for fun. And I do, it is fun and it is rewarding in itself, but suddenly the dynamic changes a little bit, and you have to think about, okay, can I give this for free, or should I specifically create this for my members? And then I felt bad for like not giving it, because I've been used to giving everything away for free. And I think this is something that a lot of women, especially who run communities, really struggle with. We want to give. And at some point we also have to ask for something in return. Otherwise we can't do it full time. I didn't have to build my membership. I didn't have to run a retreat, but then I would have had to get a different job or keep freelancing, and I would have simply not had the same time and effort and energy to put into my communities, both the paid and the free one. So I think that was a really big shift, just to know where should what go. And there's a reason why a lot of people run paid memberships and not free ones on top of that. I get that. I just have such a strong emotional connection to my Facebook community that I found it very hard to think about letting that go or closing it down. And I don't really want to do that at all. It will change, it will shift. It is, and I have taken a lot of my energy and focus away from it. I just simply had to. I used to spend literally hours every single day in there, moderating, talking to people, asking questions, engaging, connecting people with each other and so on. And I simply can't do that anymore. And that's okay. So I check in, I post in there, I ask questions, I see if people tag me, I see if I can connect people with each other. Oh, you should talk to so-and-so. That's what my job is. I have a really, really small admin team. partially because they're really great. One of them is my mum, who does a lot of work, honestly, but also partially because I'm not actually very good at delegating and letting go of control. So I've never found that very easy, that part. And that's something that you have to learn as a community manager. And that's what probably brings us into the burnout conversation next. That's I don't want to say like I definitely burnt out completely, because I've seen people who have suffered properly from burnout, like they couldn't work for a year at a time. They were absolutely not able to function. And it wasn't like that for me. But earlier this year, I kind of hit a wall, and I just really felt myself, okay, if I keep going, if I keep pushing at the same pace or in the same way that I am doing now, I will definitely burn out. And it was really close. I think it was just like the pandemic and the change of lifestyle and everything on top of each other. And the fact that I hadn't taken any time off for about a year, because as soon as the pandemic started, I was like, oh my God, everybody's lonely, everybody's scared. I need to be there for them. Double down, more events, created more free events, more paid, everything. I just did more, but I forgot to actually take time off. Like I literally look back at last year and I don't think I actually took any time off properly. So earlier this year in the early spring, I really hit that wall, and I took a week off, like emergency week off. Hey everyone, things are happening. I'm taking a week off next week, just to let you know the events will either be cancelled, or if somebody else wants to run them, then that's cool. I'll tell you how to. And that's what happened. So some of my members just stepped up and they're like, yep, it's the end of the month, so we have our monthly review and planning party. I can take that on. I've attended every one of those for the last 3 years, and they just kind of really stepped up and took some work away from me, which then at the same time, that's what I was so scared of, right? But at the same time, I realized, oh, hang on, that's possible. I don't have to do everything. I can rely on other people. And yeah, I have a team member, I have a VA. She's helps me so much, but I run all the live events in my community, everything. I'm live on Zoom about 10 hours a week. And that's in addition to everything else, so it was a real eye opener when I hit that wall. And I only took time off because my friends forced me. I am in a mastermind with 2 friends, and I had a proper meltdown that week. I was crying. Everything was too much. I couldn't see any way forward. And it was sparked by just a lot of things. But I had one kind of problem member situation, one situation where I had to sort out an issue with a member and had to ultimately remove her from my community. And that was the first time I ever had to do that in this way. It has happened before, but that's usually somebody joins and they spam everyone. And I'm like, dude, no, this is not how we work here. Or I had one person actually who was abusive to me right from the start. And I was like, nope. But this was the first time that this was a more complex. I put my foot down for the first time, and it was really stressful. It was absolutely horrible. And also some of my members didn't like it. They didn't agree with me. They didn't know what had happened because I kept that all private. But what ultimately happened, what I realize now with months of processing and looking back and connecting the dots, is that I drew a really hard boundary for the first time ever, and people were surprised by it. But by doing that and then taking the time off and prioritizing my mental and physical health, I realized that I actually can change a lot of things. I'm really excited. This burnout, almost burnout, really has kind of changed the whole trajectory of where I'm going with my whole membership and my community. So it was painful, but it was a wake-up call. That's how I see it. It could have gotten worse, but I used it as a wake-up call.
Fascinating. I keep saying fascinating, but that's what it is. Like, I didn't know you were going through all that. I remember when you did take the week off. I remember seeing that in your community, but I didn't really know everything behind it. So thank you for sharing with us. I mean, that is a lot. And I forgot to mention that too, when you have kind of abusive members or members where, I mean, that's part of moderation, but members where things just aren't going right in the community, and you are really kind of the face of the community that has to step in. And when you have that pushback from your community, that can be very stressful as well. And so would you say, I mean, is the cause of burnout or your beginnings of burnout, was that just from being on the last 5 years?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. You know, the pandemic probably doesn't help either. And yeah, I'm not very good at taking time off. Digital nomads in general are quite bad at taking time off, despite having all this freedom and flexibility. We don't really apply it all the time. I think it was just a combination of things. And also, I had run my membership at that point 3 years. It has changed, it has evolved, and this problem with the member that I mentioned, it wasn't like something super dramatic that happened that one day and it exploded. It was worse in the sense that it was something that had happened like slowly and quietly for a long time, and often that can be more disruptive because you're dealing with it, you don't know if you should be dealing with it. Is it all in my mind? Am I making this up? And what happens is that you can kind of go off your path a little bit. It allows you, like, if you allow it to happen, if you allow people to kind of do their own thing and, you know, push the boundaries a little bit. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it can happen that you kind of lose track of your vision and try to accommodate everyone. And by doing that, you kind of, who suffers is you, because you simply can't make everyone happy. And I realize that it's such a trope, right? It's like, oh, women always look after everyone else first before they look after themselves. And I never really saw myself as that at all. I'm like, no, I'm not a martyr. I'm not like that. But I realized that I had really tried to make every single one of my members happy with everything I do. And it's simply not possible because you can't do everything. And if you try to do that, you kind of really can lose your path a little bit, because that's not how it works in business. You have to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're going, and who you're doing it for. So I think for me, it was just a combination of all of those things. Traveling as well. I had traveled for 5.5, 6, I don't know, 6.5, can't remember, many years really fast. I was already getting quite jaded just from the traveling. So having the pandemic as this break was quite helpful, like physically, to recover. But I think it was just everything on top of each other. Yeah.
Then you said you put your foot down. So I want to hear kind of how you have started to protect yourself. What are you doing proactively to protect yourself, and other ways that maybe you've put your foot down too? Because I just want to add also, when I think there are any kind of challenges or issues, not just in our, if we don't nip those in the bud early on, they take up space in our mind. And that really is like just stress sitting there dormant, and it affects you even if you're not thinking about it. So definitely with those problems in the community, I know with my community, it just, I can't sleep right. Like I can feel it in my stomach. I feel anxious when I have those problems that aren't resolved. And I know for me, the best thing to do is just take action as soon as possible, no matter how intimidating or scary it is, to kind of stand up in front of my community and take a stand. I just know if I do that, I will suffer a lot less in the long run if I just do something about it now.
Yeah.
Would love to hear from you proactively preventing.
Yeah, you said that in a much nicer way. That's kind of what I tried to say. Like this, it can build up and up and up and up, and suddenly you realize, okay, too far. I can't take this anymore. I need to change something. And again, this is my experience for my specific membership, my community. And at this point in time, right, this might not be relevant to some people right now. Maybe it will be relevant in 3 years' time, or maybe it was relevant 3 years ago when they were like, oh no, that's not happening. So proactively, I think, again, very specifically in my case, what happened is, like you said, I am always very, very open and honest with my community, probably too much. This is where I talk about boundaries. I share everything. I'm honest. I share my personal stories. I share where I struggle, both in business and in life and in travel, with everything, which makes for really good conversations, which makes for a lot of trust and deep connections within the community. And it fosters that kind of openness and honesty, like you set the example as the leader of the community, right? But at the same time, I also realized I might have just taken that a little bit too far in the sense that I hadn't protected myself at all. And once you do that, so, if everybody in your community thinks of themselves as best friends, that's wonderful. But what happens when one best friend is asked to leave? Then you have a problem, right? Because then it's not, oh, this is one of my clients who is not an ideal client anymore, and therefore I asked them to leave. Suddenly it's like, oh, but you kicked my best friend out. So this is what I realized, that yes, I want people to make friends. Yes, we call them business besties. I want them to make travel buddies, to work together, to become each other's clients, team members. but I can't lead everything with friendship. So I needed to really remember my purpose, the purpose of my community, and that is ultimately we're business women, and this is how we support each other. Yes, there's lifestyle, and I don't want to cut any of that out, and I won't, but just to remind myself and my members of the purpose, our core values. And what happened is that I completely overhauled our guidelines and mission statement and everything. I announced that before I took a week off. I said, look, something happened, it wasn't really aligned, I'm aware, and I'm going to be working on this going forward. People were quite keen to get their hands on these new values and the updated version, but I took my sweet time on purpose, because it's not something that you just, cobble together. It was really an excellent exercise for me at that moment in time with my community, where I realized, okay, I've hit some kind of wall. I need to put some boundaries in place. I need to remind myself what the purpose is. Who am I trying to help? How am I trying to help them? How can I not help them? And just taking that time to put these new these new guidelines together, and it was like full mission statement and purpose and values and everything, and then the ground rules. It was such a great opportunity for me to really reconnect with why am I doing what I'm doing? What is my business for? Who is it not for? And how can I best serve my members? And it was a really, really excellent timing for me as well. So that helped a lot. And also to draw those boundaries for me, to even realize that I need boundaries, because I think this is something I wanted to mention much earlier and I forgot. I think what happens is when we do work that we love, we forget that it is work. So we only see it as, oh, this is fun, this is joyful. And that's how I saw my community, and especially my membership, the inner circle, the whole time. I'm like, every day I come off a call, I pinch myself. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. I just got to run a feedback session with my members. Yay, now we just had a D&G tea time chat about anything, productivity, whatever, It's always like such a joy and pleasure, but it's still work. And redefining that for myself was really crucial, because even if you love your work, and maybe especially if you love your work, you still need to take time, and you still need to allow yourself to recover and do other things. So yeah, that was proactively what I did. What I also want to do, and I haven't really put it solidly into place yet, but I will, is every quarter, 1 week a quarter, I will put in the calendar as I am not there going forward. And either I don't run events that week, and that's fine, because my community is mainly events based, or other members run the events, and that's also fine. But I think by putting that really front and center and saying, this is what's happening, I am taking that week off, it also encourages my members to do that. Because when I announced that I was taking the week off, I had at least 10 people messaging me, oh, Jenny, that's such a good reminder. I can't remember the last time I took a week off. You know what? I'm going to take a week off as well. So we actually had kind of like a joint holiday. So those are some more proactive things I'm doing, but it's also leading me to really, I'm in a complete transition phase with my business anyway, but this whole situation that unfolded there with that near burnout experience was a catalyst for me to really get a lot of clarity and kind of change my path a little bit, which I'm really excited about. So a lot will come out of that.
Sounds exciting that there's been a definite shift from and I wouldn't say you hit rock bottom or anything, but you had kind of the wake up call, as you called it, and that's allowed you to really look at things from a different perspective and start to pivot your business, which I think that's the silver lining, I guess, of what came out of this. I just want to encourage everyone watching out there, if you have any questions, let us know in the Q&A box, because we have about 2 or 3 minutes left of the fireside chat here, and then we will take your questions. And I think it's important to, maybe it depends if you're working for an organization, but I think especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you have like a hobbyist community, like you said, sometimes we forget that it's work when we love what we're doing so much. Sometimes we feel like if we step away from our community for a few days or for a day, it's going to all fall apart and we're going to lose the momentum, and people aren't going to be there, they're not going to engage, we're going to lose the numbers. I had to learn too. I kind of faced a mini burnout last fall, and I was really worried about stepping away, but heavy to keep going. And I took a break, and you know what? Everything is fine. Like, I'm not curing cancer. I have an online community. Everybody was still there when I came back. And so I think it's an important lesson, or something to remind ourselves, like, the world keeps moving just because we're not in our communities, 10 hours a day. So okay to step away. I would love to hear from you just in general, because I know also I was at one of your retreats and there was someone there who was facing some pretty severe burnout. I mean, she had to take a year off from her job. And I know there were conversations about burnout there. And I just want to see, what do you think, or what do you remember? What have you heard are some of the signs for people to just be aware of if they're on the brink of burnout?
I mean, I'm not a therapist or any of that. I can actually connect you with someone who is a therapist who has a community for therapists. That might be super interesting as well. But for me, what I'm seeing is just like losing any kind of interest, curiosity, passion, drive, motivation. You just don't care anymore about something that you actually deeply care about. And when that happens, that's a warning sign, because I do care about my community. I care about my business a lot. But suddenly I was just like, you know what? I just don't care anymore. Screw it. Let's just burn it all to the ground. And yeah, that can happen sometimes if you run your own business. But if that starts to be like a really dominating, feeling that keeps on coming back or doesn't go away, that's definitely one sign. Physical exhaustion as well, like 100%. And I don't know, I think people get it in different ways. For me, I was just so emotional about everything. I couldn't really see things in a very objective way anymore. Everything felt really personal. Everything felt really painful. And it just really, in a way, like it really got to me. But at the same time, I was also like, I just don't care anymore, which sounds really weird because clearly I did care, but I didn't care about it in the same like excited and motivated way anymore. Yeah. And now, like, I don't know, there must be lots of other signs as well. I actually took some notes. Maybe I'm forgetting something. Yeah. Oh, another one. Yes. Resentment as well. Once you start resenting people in your community, because again, they're people, this is what, yes, it's a business, or yes, it's a project, it's a community, but they are people. Every community is just a number of people. And once you find yourself starting to resent either individuals or even having to do something like, oh God, I don't really care about this book club right now. I don't want to talk about this book, where usually I love nothing more than talking about books with my, members or friends. For me, that was a big warning sign where I'm like, something's off here.
Definitely. And I see Valentina says, I've definitely felt I was feeling like I just wasn't connected to my community last fall. Really, the lack of motivation was my sign. I was like, I don't want to sit down and be creative. I don't really have like the pull to be in my community like I did just a few months before.
Mm-hmm.
And so also it was kind of my wake break, because I definitely want to keep my community, but I need to find my mojo again. I need to find my energy and my drive for this. So maybe just focusing my energy elsewhere for a little bit will allow me to kind of heal and feel motivated again. And luckily I do. With that step back, Piper says, me too, especially my last job. I would happily work 60 hours per week and not realize how tiring that was until an actual day off. Yes. Yeah, we give and give and give. And then when we kind of are still, how much we've been giving and how little we've been giving to ourselves. I am going to move us into the Q&A. We'll have one more question here, and then we can move into the Q&A. So for those that drop your questions in the Q&A. Do not be shy. Ask Jenny anything you like. So you have your Q&A box at the top of the chat here. But just kind of closing up on the fireside chat to hear, what are your 3 top tips that you have for community managers to help them avoid burnout?
Yeah, I actually wrote those down because I didn't want to forget them. So one thing that I've already mentioned a lot is boundaries. And I want to say that again, because if you had told me 6 months ago, Jenny, you need some boundaries in your membership, I would have said, no, because I love it and it's all fun. I don't need boundaries, but you still do. Because first of all, the thing is, like, you run a community, but you're still part of that community. So you are the leader, but you're also a member. And that dynamic is quite complicated. And I think starting to think about boundaries. Okay, do I need to be here do I need to support this person in this way? Is this actually appropriate? Does this actually represent the value, of if this is a free community and you're spending hours and hours on one person supporting them, is this actually doing you any favors? So starting to think about that, even if it's not something you ever consider that you need, start thinking about boundaries and write them down. Because what happened when I started writing down my guidelines, I wasn't actually writing down guidelines and boundaries at all. I was actually writing promises. And I realized that from reading it back, I kept on writing, I will do this for you, I will do that for you, I promise to do this. And then I realized, hang on, I'm supposed to be writing how I will protect myself. So that didn't ultimately go into the community guidelines in that way, but just really taking like a journal and writing about that for a little while and thinking about what kind of boundaries, what do you need? What do you specifically need, Because yes, it's about them, and we always want to give our members what they want, and this is how we are taught, right? Like, especially when you're turning it into a business, it's like, well, ask them what they want and then create that for them. Yes, but also only if you want to. You don't have to do it, even if they want to. So boundaries is the number one. Then listen to your body and mind. Do not push through anything. If you're struggling, take some time off. The community is not going to fall apart in the week off or in a few weeks off. And if it does fall apart, that doesn't sound promising, but if it does fall apart in that short amount of time of you not being there, then that is just proof that something was fundamentally probably already wrong anyway. So that sounds really harsh, and I haven't seen it happen ever. So I think people just worry about that a lot, and I do, of course, as well. And the third thing, really important, and that's something I have learned too slowly. I don't know why. It's like one of those when you wake up and you're like, why didn't I think about this 5 years ago? You need a community yourself, and you actually need multiple communities yourself. You cannot rely fully on your own community for all the support that you need. And this is something I've done for a long time. So find other communities that support you in addition with that. And communities of community hosts like this one are probably perfect for that. And this is something I have been really lacking. I don't know why, but it's never really occurred to me that I need that. And of course I need that massively. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes, we're so happy to have sharing those 3 tips. And something reminded me when you said it earlier about how I guess part of your boundaries is to like you do everything, or you've done everything. I think another thing that you made me think of when you said that is like not asking for help, but finding help, right? Get moderators. I know a lot of us like to do everything ourselves. We're used to it. We're very territorial about our communities. But at some point, you have to start sharing those responsibilities. You are going to burn out. You cannot continue to be the sole person with the content, with the moderation, with the doing the lives, and with your writing the blog post, all that stuff. You really have to learn how to delegate and start trusting other people so that you can offload yourself from some of the things that you just shouldn't be doing anymore. Anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to mention that and I completely forgot. 100%. And that is both, like, if you're running your community as a business, then hopefully you'll get to a point eventually where you can actually hire someone like a VA or social media manager, community manager, facilitator to do that. But also one thing that we forget is that we have members who really care about our communities as well. And even if they pay us, they still want to take on, a lot of them still want to take on responsibility. That's what I realized when a lot of my members, they host co-working sessions every week because they want to work at a specific time. So they said, hey, I'm going to put that in the calendar. Anyone want to join me? So they're already willing to do that. And when I said, hey, I'm taking a week off, I know it's really spontaneous. I know we have a book club scheduled, and I know we have our monthly review and planning scheduled. They just stepped up. They want to do this. And I think often we forget that, as maybe it's not a huge burden to us, and maybe they're like, oh, actually I always wanted to try facilitating something like that. Can I please try it out? Yes, of course. And we can support them in doing so as well.
Such a great point. All right, I'm going to go into the Q&A. We have some questions here. So Piper says, think about putting on a virtual event early on in the life of a new community. I like the idea of the way you started out.
I mean, depends on what actually no, why am I saying that? I think it's a great idea. Obviously you will have to have some people in there already, so maybe if you're just 3 and only 2 can make it, then I don't know if that's that's a community event. That's more like a coffee chat, and that's fine as well. But I don't see why not for me, like the virtual events, that's where you actually meet people. That's where you actually connect. It's nice to chat in like a written chat and so on, but you can't make the same connection as you can over Zoom or other, what is this? Sorry, what is it called? Yes, or whatever tool you're using. It's just not the same thing. So I definitely would recommend that. What is good is to keep it really simple. So what you don't want to do is like, okay, I'm going to put on an event and it has to be a whole virtual summit and I have to have speakers and it has to be a workshop and it needs to be 5 hours long. Just start with something like a mixer party. That's what I'm actually hosting a free mixer party next week for my wider community, and it's going to be super simple. We meet online, and then depending on how many people come, we'll do a little round of intros, and then I put people randomly into breakout rooms together, give them a little icebreaker, and then have a chat. And then they come back after 10 minutes, and then I pair them with other people, and they get to meet people. It's really easy to host. It's really scalable, and I don't have to prepare a lot. I run these almost every month in the inner circle, so I can kind of do it in my sleep. And our members love them. Every time they come out of that breakout room, I don't know what they're talking about in there. They come out and they're like, Jenny, this was amazing. So I would say keep it really, really simple at first. And if it's your first event, maybe just a meet and greet, go around in a circle. But also do think about how you want to run the event, just so you have your own boundaries in place, that it doesn't go for 5 hours, that you know how to deal with people if they come for the wrong reasons, if they keep on interrupting. And this is something you will learn over time. But I wouldn't be too afraid to start with this early on, because that's where real connections are going to be made. And if you are thinking of turning this into a business, then I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Love it. The inside. Yeah, I definitely encourage you, Piper, putting on early on in the life of a community. Also, you just learn a lot too. I mean, it's great experience as well. And communities like to gather. So if you can't be in person, I think virtual event is a great alternative. I'm going to go to Angela's question here. She says, this is a bit off the topic of burnout, but I'd love to hear a bit more about your community moderation process. Removing a community member is a really difficult thing to have to go through and a challenge in so many communities.
Yeah, excellent question. And when I saw the part about community moderation process, all my alarm bells went off, because I'm not a very process-driven person. I don't have all the templates and SOPs in place yet. Many reasons, but yeah, I'm not the most organized person, let's call it that. But yes, removing a community member is really difficult, always is, but it gets easier. And here I want to separate. So if I talk about one of my paying members who I might have again, this doesn't usually happen. Usually this would be somebody who joins a paid community and immediately it's glaringly obvious that they're not a good fit. And then to ask someone to leave is actually much easier, because you haven't made a connection yet. And if you have really good guidelines and rules in place, you can rely on them. So that's why these are really important, not only for people to read them before they post or before they interact or before they act, to know whether they are within the guidelines, but also if something goes wrong, in hindsight, you can then go, well, actually, just point to rule number 5, you have violated that 3 times or even 1 time, and we just simply don't allow that. We have a 0 tolerance of, rule of sexism. If you have been blatantly sexist, you broke that rule and I can remove you. So again, it's harder when it's your paying member, of course, because it's a different relationship, but I also find it happens much, much, much more rarely. In the Facebook group, it was literally a journey for me. I remember the first few times something happened, oh my God, I'd spend hours talking to them, trying to mediate if 2 people were fighting, DMing back and forth, and oh my God, what a waste of time. I do not do that anymore at all. If somebody really misbehaves, spams, or is rude, or harasses anyone or anything like that, I simply delete and block. Done. It gets much easier after a while. And in a community of 30,000 people, or even a few hundred or a few thousand people, you have to protect your other members. You can't put your whole energy and effort into making this one member happy or kind of placating them just because they're having a bad day. It's not fair on you, and people do expect that, sadly. But I have learned over the years, I've learned diplomacy, and I've learned to be quite ruthless when I have to. You have to.
Yeah, she is. It's like, you're out. I don't have time for your bad juju, and you're not going to the energy of my community either. So bye.
Yeah. I've literally asked people, like when people, sometimes they do that thing where you post something, a rule or something, and then they comment beneath and you already know they're just looking for trouble. And often now I would comment below saying, well, this actually is not in alignment with our community guidelines at all. This is not the vibe we want to have in here. You're being like, this can be considered really problematic, blah, blah, blah. And if you think this community isn't a good fit for you, if you don't agree with that and you think this community isn't a good fit for you, feel free to remove yourself. Sounds super harsh, and I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago, but I do now.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like that, Jenny. Yeah, just let them know, like, there are boundaries to protect our community, and if you're not going to follow them, then you're out. So thank you so much. I'm seeing some comments here. Piper says, I'm pleased to hear you say it gets easier. I was sitting here wondering if I was off because I'm perfectly content to boot someone. Angela says, nice and good insight.
No, it definitely gets much easier. Oh God, yeah, it used to be so hard. And I used to like take screenshots of everything. What if this person complains, or what if this and this happens? And now I'm just like, delete, block, gone. Like, just, you have to protect your own mental health, right? This is related to burnout. So
Definitely. All right, last question here before I'm going to pass it off to Valentina. But we have one here from Angela. She sent me this before. She says, if you see someone in your community with signs of burnout, do you approach them? If so, how?
It depends. I think it depends on whether I have had interactions with that person before where I really feel like, okay, I could be a judge of this, because again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not trained for that. However, if I'm, in my membership community, I see the same people every week. We are on calls, we co-work together, we set goals together, we talk about books together. If I have a kind of good grasp on that person and I see they are burning themselves out, or what I feel, I definitely mention it. I would definitely bring it up. You can send them a personal message. You can say, hey, I've just noticed that, your energy seems off, or you seem to be really struggling, and you've mentioned you've been working so much. Have you thought about taking some time off? What I think is really important, this gets much easier as well if you lead by example. So if you talk about this stuff openly and honestly and share that you struggle with it yourself, then other people will they will take it in a very different way. I think if I said, I'm super perfect and organized and I never have any problems and I'm so great at boundaries and my mental health is perfect, I think you have some struggle, you have some problems with your mental health, like, whoa. But if I'm like, dude, I feel like I get it, like I felt like that last year, have you thought about maybe taking a week off, because that really helped me last year? It's a very different way. So again, how we show up as the leader, this is how we set the example in the conversation. So again, depends on a little bit whether I know that person. If it's a completely new member and I've never met them before, maybe, because especially with things like burnout, it depends on how that shows up in your community. If there's no impact of them having burnout or potentially having burnout, that if it doesn't impact your community, your vibe, your interaction with members and so on, it depends. But if it starts doing that, and it can, then you have to kind of step up in a way and just have that conversation and maybe offer or like recommend that person might get some professional help as well. And I have done that in the past. It's really hard, but it's kind of part of the job, I guess, to some extent. And again, like, don't go in and diagnose them with anything, but just say, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about you. I care about you. I worry about you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, we are at time. So Jenny, I just want to take a moment here to thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your journey, your insights with burnout. And we're just so appreciative of it. So thank you for your time today. This was fabulous.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. And thanks for asking questions as well. I love it when that happens.
Me too. And everyone out there, give me a virtual round of applause there in the comments for her. Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm going to pass it on to Valentina to take us out. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Seppi, for being the moderator here for this fireside chat. I don't know about everybody else that's listening in, but there were so many things that Jenny said that just kind of were like, yes, yes, yes. That's how I felt. That's how I feel now. That's what I need to do. It's just doing it, right? or having the confidence to do things. But it was really nice to hear that these kind of feelings and situations are happening to other community managers, because it's often said that we tend to feel like we're doing this alone, and we're really not. There's thousands of us in the world that are going through this every single day, and we just hope that our events and being able to come together really just kind of helps you like validate what you're thinking or decisions that you need to make with your community, or with the way you're feeling, to make a change. Because we all need to take time off, and I will put my hand up and say that since I know even before the pandemic started, I haven't taken a day off, because you feel like opportunities keep coming, and I just need to do this, I just need to do that, but at what point do you stop? So thank you so much, Jenny and Seppi, for this. It's been really great, and we are recording this, so if you do want to watch the replay, we will be putting that out very soon. But let's talk about what's coming next. We're actually at a moment with CMX Connect Madrid where we are looking to the future and what could be an in-person event at some point. Summer is here. Last summer we did meet once in August in a park in Templo de Bol. We are looking to do that again this year, and hopefully moving forward continue with in-person events as things start to open up and restrictions hopefully begin to ease out here in Madrid. And we are really looking to strengthen our community here in Madrid, which I know there's a lot of people that join us from all over the world, and we really appreciate you. But we are going to be focusing going forward on bringing back our community that you saw in the video at the beginning of this event. I remember at Christmas we had like 70 people in person, and it was just so great to network in person. So that's what we're aiming for. We don't know how long it's going to take, but that's what we're looking to do. So watch this space. We have decided on a date for July. It's going to be July 7th. We are looking at different topics. So if you have a topic in mind that you love to learn about or hear from someone, you can reach out to me and Seppi on all of our social media channels. We are also going to be getting the Facebook group that we have here in Madrid back up and running. We've just been so busy this year with work commitments that, we'll put our hand up and say that we kind of forgot about it. But we're going to be working to get that back up and running, because we really want a place for everyone to connect with each other after the events. And so you can join that. It's CMX Connect Madrid Community Builders. So that's all we have for now. Don't forget that CMX has lots going on with their own events. There's obviously a lot of chapters that are still doing virtual events all over the world, which you can attend. There's lots of things on the YouTube channel this is where this video will go after this. And stay tuned for CMX Summit, which will be coming very soon. They're going to be making an announcement shortly about what's in store. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. We hope that you've gone away with at least one actionable strategy that you can implement. Oh my God, almost straight away, if not in the next week. And we will see you again in July. That's it. Seppi, anything else?
That is it. Oh, well, Piper asks, are you going to start doing virtual events? The $1 million question.
That is a very good question. I don't know is the answer. Like, I would love to do some sort of hybrid version, but we're looking into what that actually means. It might be maybe 1 month is virtual, 1 month's in person. I don't know. That's something we're going to look into over the next few months and see what the community wants, but we will, I don't know is the answer. I'm sorry that doesn't really answer your question at all. But we're thinking about it is the best answer I can give you.
Keep you posted. Well, that is it. Once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Jenny, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thanks for your questions. We'll see you next month.
See you. Bye for now.